In the previous video, we looked at a simple problem. If some UFO observations are accurate, then they don't move the way anything we've ever built does. No visible propulsion, no wings, no exhaust, which raises a more interesting question. Not, what are they, but what kind of system could produce that behavior? Let's start with two assumptions. First, some of these observations are real. Second, they are not using conventional propulsion. No engines pushing against air. No thrust in the usual sense. If those two assumptions hold, then the number of possible explanations shrinks very quickly. Because now, we're not looking for a better jet engine. We're looking for a completely different interaction with the environment. And when you approach it that way, a few categories start to emerge. The first model is also the most conservative. Advanced electroaerodynamics. In simple terms, instead of pushing air, the vehicle controls it. By using very strong electric fields, it could ionize the air around it, which means turning part of the surrounding atmosphere into a charged, controllable medium. And once air is ionized, it doesn't behave like a normal gas anymore. It becomes responsive to electromagnetic fields, which allows for something interesting. Instead of a single engine producing thrust, you get distributed interaction across the entire surface. Tiny forces spread everywhere, working together. That could reduce drag, reshape airflow, and even generate propulsion-like effects without any moving parts. It would also explain a few reported features. Smooth shapes, no visible propellers, occasional glow or halo, relative silence, which is interesting. But there's a limitation. Even if you push this idea very far, it struggles to explain the most extreme cases. Instant acceleration, sharp directional changes, no visible stress. So this model works, but probably not on its own. The second model is more radical. Instead of changing the air, it changes the way the vehicle interacts with motion itself. In physics, inertia is what resists acceleration. It's why sudden movement creates force, why structures fail under stress, why pilots pass out under high G-load. Now imagine a system that doesn't fight inertia, but modifies it. Not removing mass, not canceling gravity, but changing how the system responds to acceleration. If something like that were possible, then extreme maneuvers would no longer require extreme forces. Acceleration could appear instant, direction changes could look effortless, and the internal structure wouldn't experience the same stress. That would explain a lot, but it comes with a problem. We don't currently have a working engineering model that can do this reliably. There are ideas: rotating electromagnetic fields, toroidal structures, plasma interactions, resonant systems, but nothing close to a complete, proven implementation. So this sits at the edge. Not impossible, but not demonstrated either. The third model is less about physics and more about architecture. Instead of having a vehicle with a separate engine, the entire structure becomes the system, a resonant hull. In this model, the shape is not aesthetic. It's functional, disc-like, toroidal, layered, because those geometries are extremely efficient at handling fields and resonances. They allow symmetry, uniform distribution, and full directional control, which means something important. There are no thrusters, no visible propulsion points. Instead, different areas of the surface modulate fields locally. The hull acts as an antenna, a resonator, an electrode, a waveguide, and a structural frame, all at the same time, which would explain why these objects are often described as simple, smooth, minimal, because complexity is happening in the fields, not in the visible components. The fourth model is the most speculative, and also the most difficult to talk about without exaggeration. Interaction with the vacuum. Not empty space as nothing, but as a physical system with underlying structure. Quantum fluctuations, field interactions, energy distributions that are usually inaccessible. The idea here is not free energy, it's coupling. If a system had the right geometry, the right frequency, and the right field intensity, it might be able to interact with deeper layers of physical reality, not pushing against air, not even just modifying plasma, but interacting with the background itself. If that were true, it could explain the most extreme observations. But there's a clear problem. This is the least experimentally grounded of all the models. It's elegant, but mostly theoretical, so it should be treated carefully, as a frontier, not as a conclusion. So instead of choosing one model, a more realistic approach is to combine them. A system where the structure acts as a resonator, high-frequency electromagnetic fields are generated with precision. A plasma layer forms around the vehicle, internal materials support field dynamics, and everything is controlled through coherent modulation. Not just power, but phase, frequency, synchronization. In that kind of system, the goal is not brute force, it's coherence. The vehicle doesn't fight the environment, it integrates with it. And this brings us back to the original question. If some of these observations are real, then we're not looking at better engines. We're looking at a different approach to motion itself. One where the boundary between object and environment starts to blur. And maybe that's the real shift. Not more power, but a different way of organizing interaction between fields, matter, and movement. Because if propulsion is no longer required, then everything we think we know about how systems move might need to be reconsidered.